Rain pattered on the window of my apartment in Portland's Pearl District, a familiar Oregon March symphony. I woke at 7:30 a.m., my head heavy as if stuffed with cotton, the aftermath of a sinus infection that made breathing feel like inhaling through a wet cloth. My small apartment with its exposed brick walls and a window that never quite sealed was where I'd built my life, not glamorous, but cozy, filled with thrift store finds and green houseplants that miraculously I hadn't yet killed. I rolled over, reaching for my phone, its screen's glare making me squint. 3 texts from Megan, my best friend, asking if we were still meeting for coffee on Thursday. One from my mom, Laura, with a gif of a dancing cat, and the message, "Happy Tuesday." Love 2 missed calls from a client wanting the logo. I designed to be more purple, but less purple. I smiled, though my stuffy nose made it lopsided. I'm Emily Harper, 32, a freelance logo designer living an ordinary life in Portland. My work isn't the kind that makes people gasp in awe, but it pays the rent, lets me work in pajamas, and keeps my student loans at bay. I dragged myself out of bed, shuffling to the kitchen, where the walls are adorned with my paintings and family photos. One shows me with my parents, Laura and David Harper, at Crater Lake, when I was 15, all 3 of us squinting in the bright sun. Another is from my Portland State graduation, my dad, David, in his only suit, beaming with pride, and my mom, Laura, crying happy tears. They're the kind of parents anyone would dream of. Laura, a pediatric nurse, always sharing stories of brave kids. David, an accountant, as excited about tax season as a child awaiting Christmas. They've held hands through 35 years of marriage, a model I've always admired. I brewed a cup of tea with honey, hoping it would soothe my scratchy throat. My phone buzzed, mom's picture flashing on the screen, taken at her last birthday party. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her voice warm as a hug. "How are you feeling?" I groaned. "Like my head's full of cement." She laughed, reminding me of the time I got pneumonia in high school because I ignored a sinus infection. "I took 3 days off work, slept on a chair by your bed," she said, and I recalled the hot soup bowls and water glasses she forced me to drink. "I'll go to the clinic," I promised, and she mentioned my cousin Sarah's wedding, daughter of my Aunt Linda. "Don't make your aunt call again about the RSVP. You know how she is," I chuckled. The Harper family is small but tight-knit, just my parents, Aunt Linda, Uncle Tom, and their 2 kids. I have no memories of grandparents, something I've always regretted. Mom said they passed before I was born, so I never had stories of grandma's cookies or grandpa's war tales like my friends. After the call, I showered through on my dad's old University of Oregon sweater and drove to the clinic through pouring rain. The doctor confirmed a sinus infection, prescribed antibiotics, and told me to rest. I parked in front of the Walgreens on Northwest 23rd, lucky to snag a spot by the door. Inside, the pharmacy hummed but wasn't too crowded, an old man arguing about insurance, a young mom juggling a toddler, and a bag of prescriptions. I handed my script to the clerk, a kid who looked fresh out of high school, and was told to wait 20 minutes. I wandered the aisles, picking up a lip balm, a spring cleaning magazine, a bag of cough drops, ordinary things for an ordinary life. If someone had told me that in 20 minutes my entire world would collapse, I'd have laughed. I was Emily Harper, with childhood photos on my parents' mantle, a driver's license, a social security number, a clear history. But history, I was about to learn, can be rewritten, and sometimes the most ordinary moments are the start of a storm. I stood in line, shifting from foot to foot, trying to ignore the pressure in my sinuses. The woman ahead of me, with silver hair neatly pinned and a sweater like my mom's, was buying gardening supplies, gloves, fertilizer, a small shovel. She turned and our eyes met. For a moment, her face went pale, as if she'd seen a ghost. Her bag slipped from her hands, and I bent to help, but she grabbed my wrist, her eyes wide, trembling. "You look just like my sister," she whispered, her voice breaking, as if holding a secret too heavy to speak. I smiled awkwardly, thinking it was just a passing comment, but her eyes full of pain and hope made my heart clench. I didn't know that seconds later, 5 words from her would shatter my life, making me question everything I'd ever believed. The rain still pattered outside Walgreens, but inside the air grew stifling, as if the world had shrunk to the space between me and the woman before me. Her gardening supplies lay scattered on the floor, gloves, and fertilizer spilled near her plain brown shoes, but she didn't care to pick them up. Her eyes, green with golden flecks, locked onto mine, as if I were a phantom from her past. "You look just like my sister," she repeated, her voice trembling, and before I could respond, she said 5 words that stopped my heart. She went missing 25 years ago. I froze, the polite smile on my lips dissolving like mist in sunlight. The bottle of antibiotics in my hand slipped shattering on the linoleum with a sharp crack. Tiny white pills rolled everywhere under the candy shelf near her shoes. But we both stood still, trapped in a moment where time ceased. "What was her name?" I asked, my voice faint, trying to regain composure. She looked at me, her gaze piercing through flesh, and said, "Your name," I echoed. "My name," as if words had lost meaning. "Lily," she said. "Lily Marie Carter." My heart pounded my chest tight. "My name is Emily Rachel Harper. Rachel is my middle name chosen. My parents said for my grandmother, whom I never met because she died before I was born." But now Rachel rang in my mind like an alarm bell. She stepped closer, close enough for me to see every wrinkle on her face. Every silver strand, I guessed, came from decades of grief. "You have her eyes," she whispered, green with golden flecks, "and that scar." She pointed to the small scar on my right eyebrow. I touched it reflexively, my fingers trembling. "I fell off my bike at 7, I said, as if that would dispel the truth pressing in. "My dad David took me to the ER. My mom Laura held my hand as the doctor stitched 3 sutures. That memory was as clear as yesterday. Or was it Lily fell off her bike at 7 too? She said, her voice certain, not a question. 2 weeks before she went missing. 3 stitches at St. Mary's Hospital in Denver. My head spun, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing like angry bees. An old man behind us coughed, clearly impatient, but I couldn't move. "How old are you?" she asked. 32, I said, my voice faltering. "Lily would be 32, she said, her voice breaking like glass. Born May 15, 1993. I nodded, unable to speak. "That's my birthday." She had a crescent-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder, she continued, and I felt the blood drain from my face. "I have that birthmark. I always thought it was cute, unique. My college boyfriend used to kiss it, calling it my lucky charm. But how could she know? How could a stranger know something only my closest loved ones had seen?" She fumbled in her purse, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped her wallet. She pulled out an old photo, its edges worn, and handed it to me. "This is Lily, 3 days before she disappeared." I looked at the picture and the ground beneath me tilted. A little girl smiled brightly, missing 2 front teeth, wearing a pink helmet and knee pads. Her nose, her chin, her green eyes with golden flecks, it was my face from the childhood photos on my parents' mantle. She wore a pink dress I swore I remembered owning. "I have to go," I said, my voice choked, stepping back as if the photo were a flame that could burn me. "I'm sorry, I have to go." I turned, running through the pharmacy's automatic doors, leaving behind my antibiotics, my composure, and perhaps my identity on that floor. Rain stung my face like cold needles, but I didn't stop until I reached my car. I sat in my Honda Civic engine, off rain, pounding the windshield as if trying to break through every barrier between me and the truth. I gripped the steering wheel, breathing hard, trying to make sense of what had happened. But the truth, I realized, doesn't care if you're ready. It doesn't wait for a perfect moment. It finds you in a pharmacy line on a rainy Tuesday when you're weak and vulnerable. It wears the face of a crying stranger and the sound of your own name spoken by someone who's been searching for you for 25 years. I am Emily Harper, or at least I thought I was. But as I sat there watching the rain blur the world outside, I couldn't stop the question screaming in my mind. Was I really Lily Marie Carter? Was the life I'd lived with memories of my parents, family, vacations, and love I believed was real, just a veil hiding a terrible injustice, a stolen child, a family torn apart? I didn't know the answer, but I knew one thing: I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. Not when a missing girl's face stared at me from that photo, and not when the name Lily echoed in me like a long-forgotten memory. The rain still pounded the windshield of my Honda Civic, each drop a hammer striking my unraveling mind. I gripped the steering wheel, my breath shallow, trying to anchor myself against the whirlwind of questions screaming inside. The face of the girl in Diane Carter's photo. Lily Marie Carter haunted me with her green eyes flecked with gold, her small nose, her smile missing 2 front teeth. It wasn't just a resemblance. It was me, as if someone had taken my face from the childhood photos on my parents' mantle and placed it into another story. one of a girl who vanished from Denver 25 years ago. I was Emily Harper, daughter of Laura and David Harper, raised in Portland with family vacations and unconditional love. But what if I was Lily? What if everything I knew about myself was a lie, built on another family's pain? I drove back to my apartment in a daze, the rain blurring my vision, but not as much as the doubts clouding my mind. I ran up 2 flights of stairs, slammed the door, and stood before the hallway mirror. I stared at myself, green eyes with golden flecks, the scar on my eyebrow, the crescent-shaped birthmark on my left shoulder I'd never thought much about. "Who am I?" whispered, but the mirror didn't answer. Only my eyes, identical to the girls in the photo, stared back with a panic I couldn't hide. I walked to the bookshelf where I kept a few family photo albums my mom had duplicated for me. With trembling hands, I opened the one labeled Emily's Early Years in her neat handwriting. The first photo was my 3rd birthday, my face smeared with chocolate frosting, a party hat tilted on my head. I flipped further, Christmas at 3.5, hugging a stuffed elephant. My first day of kindergarten, wearing a Minnie Mouse backpack. But before that, nothing. No baby photos, no first steps, no first anything. My life, according to these albums, began at 3. I picked up my phone, my finger hovering over Mom's contact. Laura Harper, who slept on a chair by my bed when I had pneumonia, who kept the receipt from the first shoes I wore to kindergarten. She'd have answers, wouldn't she? I called, my heart pounding. "Hi, sweetheart," she answered on the second ring, her voice warm as always. "Did you get your meds?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I need to ask something, and I need you to be honest." Silence. "What's wrong, Emily? You're scaring me." I swallowed hard. "Why don't I have any photos from before I was 3? The silence stretched, her breathing quick. "I told you the house fire when you were 3. We lost everything." "Where was the fire, Mom?" I asked, my voice sharper. "In California, before we moved to Portland." "What was the exact address?" More silence. "In Sacramento," she said, her voice hesitant. "The specific address, Mom, I don't remember exactly. It was so long ago." I laughed, not out of amusement, but disbelief. "You kept the receipt for my kindergarten shoes, but you don't remember the address of the house we lived in when it burned down. How is that possible, Emily? You're scaring me." "What's going on?" she asked, but I couldn't continue. I hung up my hands, shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The house fire explanation, which I'd accepted without question, now sounded like a story crafted to hide something bigger. I called Megan, my best friend from college, who always knew how to ground me. "Megan, can you come over? I need you." 20 minutes later, she was there, still in her dentist scrubs, hair wet from the rain. I told her everything: the woman at the pharmacy, the photo, the birthmark, the scar, the name Lily Marie Carter. Megan listened, her eyes widening, her face shifting from curiosity to concern. "Okay, let's breathe," she said, her voice steady. "It could be a coincidence. Rachel's a common name. Lots of people fall off bikes. But the birthmark and no photos before 3, and your parents not remembering an address in California?" She paused, biting her lip. "What do you want to do? I need to know the truth," I said, my voice firm, despite my trembling heart. I opened my laptop, went to Facebook, and typed Diane Carter, Portland. In seconds, her profile appeared, a retired teacher, her profile picture with kids who could be her grandkids. Her cover photo was a blooming garden. "That's her," I whispered, my heart racing. I clicked her album, scrolling through family gatherings, parties, holidays, until I found one labeled Never Forgotten. My finger hesitated on the mouse, but I clicked. The first photo stopped my breath: a family of 4, Diane younger, a man likely her husband, a girl about 10, and a 7-year-old with a smile missing 2 front teeth. The caption read, "Last complete family photo. Lily went missing 2 weeks later." We never stopped hoping. I stared at the girl's face, my face, and felt the world tilt again. "Oh my God," Megan whispered, her hand over her mouth. "Emily, you need to meet her." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. With shaking hands, I opened a message and typed, "Ms. Carter, it's Emily from the pharmacy. I think we need to talk. Sent." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding like it would burst. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew there was no going back. My identity, which I thought was solid as granite, now wobbled like sand under waves. If I was Lily, then Laura and David Harper, the people I called Mom and Dad, had hidden a terrible secret. And if that was true, the injustice wasn't just a missing child, it was an entire life, stolen from me and from the family searching for me for 25 years. I couldn't hide anymore. I had to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. My apartment was dark lit only by the pale blue glow of my laptop screen, where unspoken questions still screamed. The message I'd sent to Diane Carter, "I think we need to talk," was like a stone dropped into an abyss, and I was waiting for its echo. The rain outside had stopped, but the air felt heavy, as if the sky itself held its breath with me. I hadn't slept since the pharmacy encounter each night, a parade of haunting images, Lily's toothless smile, the crescent birthmark on my shoulder. Diane's trembling voice calling her sister's name. I was Emily Harper, or was I Lily Marie Carter? The question was a blade slicing into memories I'd thought certain, leaving me bare with doubt about my very self. 3 days later, I sat in a small cafe on Hawthorne, the soft light from hanging lamps doing little to calm the storm inside. Diane walked in carrying a large tote and a brown envelope, her eyes red as if she'd been crying since the pharmacy. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice soft but weighted, as if a wrong word might make me vanish again. I nodded, my throat dry, unsure where to begin. Diane set the envelope on the table, opened it, and spread out a story written in ink and pain. Denver Post articles headlined, "Local Girl. Missing from Backyard, Missing Person Flyers with Lily's Face. Police reports detailing brown hair, green eyes, 42 inches tall, 45 pounds, wearing a yellow butterfly dress, left-handed scar on eyebrow crescent birthmark." Each detail was a hammer to my heart because they all matched from my birthday to the scar to the birthmark I'd thought was unique. "We'd just moved into that house," Diane said, her voice breaking like glass. "New neighbors, new fence. I thought it was safe. I went inside to answer the phone, Mom calling about Sunday dinner. 5 minutes. When I came back, the gate was open and Lily was gone." She paused, wiping tears, but her eyes stayed locked on me as if blinking might make me disappear. "We searched for hours, days, years. My husband, James, quit his job. We hired private investigators. Nothing." She opened a photo album, flipping through pages: Lily's birthdays, Christmases, zoo trips, and each picture was another knife. I saw myself in every one, the girl with light-up sneakers, hugging a stuffed elephant, smiling with milk on her chin. "This was the morning she went missing," Diane said, showing a Polaroid. Lily sat eating cereal, her smile radiant. She loved taking pictures of everything. I took a dozen that week. I shook my head, whispering, "I don't remember any of it." But when Diane pulled out an old stuffed elephant, its gray fur faded, a strange feeling stirred, not quite a memory, but something familiar like soft fur against my cheek. "This is Peanut," Diane said. Her favorite toy. She called it Peanut, never went anywhere without it. My daughter Sarah found it under Lily's bed a week after she vanished. I kept it, hoping I'd give it back to her someday. I touched the elephant, and a flash came, a tall man tossing me in the air, laughing. "Your husband?" I asked, my voice shaking. "James passed 5 years ago. Heart attack. He never stopped hoping, but not knowing killed him." She wiped her eyes. "Sarah, her sister, is 37 now, works with missing kids. She blames herself for not watching her better." My chest tightened as if the cafe's air had been sucked out. Diane slid a DNA test kit across the table. "I've taken my sample. If you agree, we'll know for sure." I stared at the kit, small but heavy with the weight of a lifetime. "How long for results?" 10 days if we pay for Rush." I took a deep breath, opened the kit, and swabbed my cheek. My hands shaking so much I nearly dropped the swab. Diane watched, tears streaming, but said nothing. As I sealed the sample, she said, "One more thing. Your parents, Laura and David Harper. If you're Lily, I need to know how they got you." I reacted instinctively. "They're good people. They love me. I'm not saying they don't," Diane replied, her voice gentle but firm. "But if you're Lily, they raised a missing child for 25 years. Your face was everywhere, milk cartons, TV, the internet. How could they not know?" Her words were a punch. I thought of my parents' reluctance to travel, their vague answers about life before Portland, how they changed the subject when I asked about extended family. I went home, my mind a mess, and 10 days later, the DNA results email arrived. I stared at it for 20 minutes. my heart pounding before opening it. 99.9% match. I was Lily Marie Carter. I sat on the bathroom floor crying until I couldn't breathe. Not from sadness or joy, but because I felt like I was dissolving, reforming into someone else. I drove to my parents' house on a Sunday, knowing they'd both be there. Mom opened the door, her smile bright as ever, but it faded when she saw my face. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold as stone. I sat across from Laura and David on their beige couch, their hands clasped tightly. I placed the DNA results on the table. Mom burst into tears instantly, Dad's face ashen. "We wanted a child so badly," Mom whispered. 10 years, 3 miscarriages, failed adoptions. Then a friend of David's called, said there was a little girl who needed a home. They said her birth mom was an addict, abandoned her. "You knew," I said, my voice sharp as a blade. "You had to know it wasn't true." Dad finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "We suspected, but we were desperate. You were so perfect, so sweet. We told ourselves we were saving you, saving me from what I shouted. From a family who loved me, who searched for me for 25 years, Mom admitted they'd moved from Ohio. Not California, changed their names from Sandra and Mark to Laura and David. We avoided news, avoided posters," Dad said. "We convinced ourselves you were better off with us." I looked at them, the people who'd given me piano lessons, cheered at my soccer games, but also stole me from another family. They'd let Diane Carter live 25 years in agony, not knowing if her little girl was alive or dead. I stood, said nothing more, and left, leaving behind a truth that couldn't be undone. I was Lily Marie Carter, and my life had been built on a terrible injustice. A stolen child, a shattered family, and a lie that spanned decades. But now the truth was out, and I wouldn't let it be buried again. I drove away from my parents' house, or rather Laura and David Harper's, in Portland's fading twilight, feeling the world tilt beneath my tires. The truth was still raw, sharp as a blade. I was Lily Marie Carter, stolen from a Denver backyard at 7, and the people I'd called Mom and Dad for 25 years had known, or at least suspected, I wasn't theirs. The anger in me burned, but intertwined with it was a deeper ache, the pain of love. They had loved me, that was real. They'd cheered at my soccer games, helped with homework, thrown birthdays with chocolate cake and party hats. But that love was built on a terrible injustice. A lie that stole an entire family, the Carters, who'd searched for me through decades, with sleepless nights and broken hearts. I returned to my apartment, where the golden light from a table lamp fell on the open photo album. My 3rd birthday picture, or Lily's, lay there, a puzzle piece, no longer fitting the story I'd believed. I sat clutching the stuffed elephant peanut Diane had given me, the soft fur under my fingers, like a faint memory from another life. I cried, not from anger or sadness, but because I was dissolving, reforming into someone new. Not fully Emily Harper, not fully Lily Carter, but someone in between, carrying both stories, both pains. Yet in that breaking, I felt a new strength. The strength to face the truth, to reclaim my identity, and to not let injustice define me another day. The aftermath of the truth unfolded over months, like a slow but unstoppable wave. Laura and David faced legal charges, interference with custody, and identity fraud. Their lawyers argued the statute of limitations had expired, that they were good parents, that I'd had a wonderful life. All true, but it didn't erase the crime. They'd chosen to keep me knowing I might be a missing child, and let Diane Carter live in torment with missing person flyers, plastered across Denver nights, praying by Lily's empty bed. I stood in court, my heart torn between love and betrayal, and said I didn't want them jailed. I just wanted the truth. In the end, they got probation and community service, a lenient sentence due to their age and my complex feelings. I didn't want to punish them. I wanted them to live with the truth as I had to. Meeting Sarah, my sister, was surreal. She came to Portland with her husband and 2 kids, and when we met at a park by the Willamette River, I saw her eyes identical to mine, green with golden flecks. She hugged me so tightly, I felt we were trying to piece together 25 years of separation. "You don't know how long I've waited for this," she whispered, tears streaming. Her kids, my nephew and niece, ran up innocent as only children can be. "Are you the lost auntie?" little Lily 7 asked. "Grandma said you were lost, but now you're found." I laughed through tears, kneeling to hug her, feeling healing in the simplicity of a child's love. Sarah told me about the years after I vanished, how she blamed herself for not watching me better, how she became a social worker for missing kids to atone for a fault that was never hers. The Carter family welcomed me at a backyard barbecue at Diane's, a space filled with laughter, tears, and hugs from aunts, uncles, cousins who'd grown up with the story of the missing girl. They told me about the searches, the posters, the nights James, my father, stood by the gate, hoping I'd return. "We never stopped loving you," an aunt said, squeezing my hand. I felt that love deep and real, but also painful, reminding me of what was stolen not just from me, but from an entire family. I kept the name Emily Harper for work, but added Lily to my legal name, Emily Lily Harper Carter. A mouthful, but it reflects me, the lost and the found, the one loved by the Harpers and searched for by the Carters. I still see Laura and David a monthly dinner, but our talks are cautious, like walking on thin ice. They're in therapy, grappling with their choices. And so, am I learning to forgive without forgetting? With Diane, I have coffee every Tuesday at the same cafe where we first talked. She tells me about family history, the backyard swing, how James used to toss me in the air, how Sarah braided my hair. Sometimes she brings Peanut and I hold the elephant, feeling memories return, not clear, but enough to make me feel I'm reclaiming a piece of myself. The Walgreens on Northwest 23rd is now a strange landmark in my life. I still go there sometimes, standing in the exact spot, thinking how a random moment shattered everything I knew. Identity, I've learned, isn't just the name you carry or the story you tell about yourself. It's the people you've lost, the ones you found, and the person you choose to become. I was stolen, but I was also loved. I was lost, but I also lived. These contradictions don't cancel each other. They weave together, creating a complex, beautiful tapestry that's wholly mine. When my story spread online after a local article, I got messages from strangers sharing their own family mysteries, questions of identity. I tell them what I've learned. The truth will find you when it's ready, sometimes in the most ordinary moments, like a pharmacy line on a rainy Tuesday. If this story resonates with you, share it and join us in telling true stories where ordinary moments become extraordinary. This story is a testament to the power of truth. When injustice hides identity and tears families apart, confronting, it can rewrite a life. Emily Lily Harper Carter overcame betrayal and loss to reclaim herself, not just for her, but for those who never stopped searching. It reminds us that identity isn't just what we're given, it's what we claim through resilience and love. The lesson for you: never let the truth stay buried. Fight to know who you are, no matter how painful. Because that's the American way: living true, loving deeply, and never letting injustice define you.